I want to emphasize this point about the Smith-Mundt Act applied to operations and funding, because it's a super, super important one, and it's kind of at the heart of what's going on right now, which is that it's bad enough what USAID does overseas and how inconsistent it is with the First Amendment and how inconsistent it is with American norms and values and the kind of values we want to project abroad. But the real dagger in this story is USAID, which is supposed to be foreign-facing, manipulating and even in some respects dominating domestic U.S. politics, domestic U.S. institutions, from media to social media to prosecutors to universities to union, you name it. This is the whole USAID Truman Show that I've been talking about for so many years now. What I mean by this whole Smith-Mundt Act thing is in 1948, the Smith-Mundt Act was passed at the same time that the plausible deniability doctrine under NSC 10-2 gave the State Department and CIA and our National Security Council the ability to lie to the American people, frankly, about what they're doing, plausible deniability, in order to influence world events, manipulate elections, co-opt the media, co-opt civil society institutions, but deny that the U.S. government was doing it or had ongoing operations in the background. So the Smith-Mundt Act was designed to say, listen, when the CIA goes out and prints false news stories or pays or bribes journalists to write things that aren't true, but they are useful for U.S. propaganda in a region, the Smith-Mundt Act protected Americans from 1948 until 2013 from that propaganda being distributed here in the homeland. So even though these were dirty deeds to maintain the American empire, the American homeland would not be affected by them. President Obama tore that down in the NDAA that passed in his second term, and that is one of the reasons we are so infected by blob propaganda, is because we have no legal protections against that anymore. But what I'm saying is, with USAID, it's far worse, because under the banner of them pumping tens of billions of dollars into institutions and organizations and operations that are supposed to impact foreign-facing countries, they're supposed to be foreign-facing, they end up boomeranging back and completely morphing the face of domestic affairs and domestic politics. When USAID goes out and pumps up media institutions that operate abroad, and we say we're giving them money to do operations abroad or media work abroad, and they come home and they print news stories about U.S. citizens or U.S. political figures, you might as well be funding them here in the homeland themselves. Same thing with the prosecutor work, with the anti-corruption probes. Same thing with the full gamut of things that I've described. But this is a huge thing because, like I said, even killing USAID as an organization, shutting down their headquarters, does not end USAID as a function. In whatever form it takes, it will continue in a modified form at the State Department if the White House plan goes through. And the State Department is going to have to be very careful to create firewalls so that the institutions that we fund for international work have no play at home. There was a great example of this a while ago with NewsGuard, one of the premier internet censorship for-profit mercenary firms. And it got a $750,000 Pentagon contract to do countering disinformation work for the Pentagon about Russian influence on social media. Well, NewsGuard targets American citizens and American news companies. So you've just given $750,000. Taxpayers have given $750,000 to buffer the revenues and the profit margins of the very firm subsidizing their silence and putting their news companies out of business. There was no requirement that the people at NewsGuard create a sister company that does international affairs work, and the one operating at home cannot profit as an organization from those proceeds. And you see this time and time again with all these organizations. So you have to have a sort of Smith-Mundt function for foreign funding, whether that's through state, whether that's through DOD, or whether that's through whatever legacy function or organization will continue to call itself U.S. humanitarian aid.